Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Just me today, and Luke's out of town, so yeah, just me for today and the next video. And so let's get started with Luke chapter 15. So Luke chapter 15 starts straight off with a parable. It is known as, well, all of Luke chapter 15 is known as, it's three parables: the parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, and the parable of the lost son. So the parable of the lost sheep, it starts off with like all these tax collectors and Pharisees are like associating Jesus with like sinful people and stuff. And it says like he's even eating with them. Like, what? And so Jesus told them the story. He says, if a man has 100 sheep and just one of the sheep goes missing, won't you leave the 99 and go find that one until you find it? And when you find it, you will joyfully carry it home on your shoulders. When you arrive, you will call together your friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my one lost sheep. So Jesus says, in the same way, more joy in heaven over one lost person or one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. So like just one single person turning away from sin, repenting, and being born again, as we are called to do in the Bible, it just brings so much joy up in heaven, and it makes God so happy. And it just shows like how willing he is just to find one single sinner and try and lead him to repentance. So then we have the parable of the lost son. So Jesus says, to illustrate this point further, I'm going to give you another story. So a man has two sons. The younger son told his father, Father, I want my share of your estate now, before you die. So his father agreed to divide the wealth between his sons. So a few days later, this younger son, he packed all of his belongings and he moved to a faraway like land. And he actually wasted all his money there in like wild living, it says. And so it says about the time his money ran out, a great famine, which is like there was no food. Everyone was going hungry. It says it swept over the land and he began to starve. So he was able to persuade a local farmer to let him work for him and like tend to the pigs. So this young man became so hungry. He said even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him. That's how hungry he was. He was willing to eat the pigs' food. But he said no one would give him anything. So he finally like realized this in his head, and he says he came to his senses. And he said to himself, at home, even the hired servants have food enough to spare, and I have nothing, and I'm dying of hunger here. So he says, I will go home to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant. So he kind of thinks that like, wow, I kind of disowned myself from this family, and I'm like my father and everything. So I shouldn't even be able to call him my father anymore, and I shouldn't be like his son. I shouldn't be called his son anymore because I've disrespected him. I've gone away from him and sinned. And so he returned home to his father, and while he was a long way off, his father still saw him coming. And so his father saw this, it says, filled with love and compassion. He ran out the door and met his son. He ran to him. And it says he embraced him, he hugged him, and he gave him a kiss, which is like a common thing back then, like, hey, kind of like a greetings. And so his son said to him what he thought. He said, Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. But his father said to the servants, quick, bring him the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet. And kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast. So his father is so happy about this, that his son is returning. And it's so cool to see that. Like, this son left, took his inheritance, everything. And now the father's just so glad that he's back with him. And so he says, for this son of mine was dead and has now returned to life. He was lost, but now he is found. So the party began. But meanwhile, the older son of the father, he was in the fields working. He had stayed with the father this whole time. And so he returned home and he heard music and dancing and a bunch of people, everything. And so he asked one of the servants what was going on. And one of the servants responded, your brother is back. And he was told, and your father has killed the fattened calf, which is like kind of their most prized calf. It's got the most fat on it, the most meat on it. It's the best to eat. And it takes a while to like, quote unquote, fatten the calf. So He says, we are celebrating because of your brother's safe return. But the older brother gets really mad at this because he's been here the whole time. He says he wouldn't even go into the party. And like, he's just mad. He's been here this whole time, and his son returns, and now he's getting the fattened calf, the best robes, throwing a whole party and everything. So the father went outside and begged the son. And then he says, but he replied, all these years I've slaved and worked for you, and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with friends. Yet when this son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf. So the father turned to him and said, look, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found. It's just so cool to see this. It represents God is like so ready to forgive us, and he wants us back. Like he wants us. We're supposed to come with him. He has open arms. He's ready for us. And we have to come to him and like be born again with a new life and with God, with Jesus. And it's just so cool to see that through these stories. And I have one more parable, and it is known as the parable of the lost coin. So it says a woman has 10 silver coins, but she loses one in her home. It says, won't she light a lamp and sweep the whole house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost coin. In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. So just even one person leaving their past behind, being reborn and turning from their sin and repenting, it makes, just in heaven, everyone's joyful about it. Everyone's happy. God's happy. The angels happy. And yeah, it kind of emphasizes like the value of every single individual. Everybody matters. Not one person should be left in this life of sin. And yeah, these stories are just so cool. And that's all I got for Luke chapter 15. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us and helping us start this channel and everything. So have a great night and stay blessed.